Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to my 10 favorite albums from 1965. This will be the first of a 6-month monthly series where I will talk about my favorite 10 albums that are celebrating a significant anniversary in 2025. So in February, I'll be doing 1975, March, I'll be doing 1985, etc. Without further ado, let's get to my top 10. My number 10 is the debut album by the Byrds, Mr. Tambourine Man. Now, Mr. Tambourine Man was the number one hit single from this album. Yes, it's a Bob Dylan song, and as we go on, you'll see that, in my opinion, Bob Dylan was the MVP of 1965. Other great songs that the Byrds covered on here are Spanish Harlem Incidents, All I Really Want to Do, and Chimes of Freedom. Now, what distinguishes the Byrds versions is the magnificent harmonies provided by Gene Clark, David Crosby, and Roger McGuinn, and also Roger McGuinn, back then known as Jim McGuinn, his 12-string Rickenbacker guitar. And that sound would become very influential as time would go on. But Gene Clark and Roger McGuinn's contributions, their original songs on here are excellent. I'll Feel a Whole Lot Better would later become a very popular song for Tom Petty on his Full Moon Fever album. Here Without You is another great track. I Knew I'd Want You has fantastic harmonies. It's No Use is pretty hard hitting for 1965. We also have a cover of Pete Seeger's The Bells of Brimney. This is a strong debut album, and they would release a second album in 1965 called Turn, 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 which is nearly as impressive. But my number 10 is The Byrds, Mr. Tambourine Man. Number 9, continuing with the Bob Dylan is MVP theme, we go to the debut album by the Turtles, It Ain't Me, Babe. Now, what happened here was the Turtles released their first single, It Ain't Me, Babe, Bob Dylan song, went to number 8. They had to put an album out, so they rushed to put out this album. It's pretty good. Yes, we do have a lot of covers on here. Other Bob Dylan songs, which the band did a great job with. They're Love Minus Zero. They did Like a Rolling Stone. It doesn't touch the original. Just telling you that straight out. But they have their different sound again. They have the nice harmonies on here, just like the Byrds did. They also covered It Was a Very Good Year. The most well-known version is Frank Sinatra's version, which opened one of the seasons of the Sopranos series back in the 2000s. Eva Destruction would later be covered, actually the same year, it would be covered by Barry McGuire, and it would be a huge hit. Let Me Be was also a big hit from this album at number 20 in the States. Also, we have some cool originals by the band, like Let the Cold Winds Blow, A Walk in the Sun. But this is a very strong debut album as well. The Turtles with It Ain't Me, Babe, number 9. Number 8 is the first album by Miles Davis's second great quintet, and that is ESP. Second great quintet, Wayne Shorter on saxophone, Ron Carter on bass, Tony Williams on drums, Herbie Hancock on piano. Herbie Hancock's name will come up later. This is when they really went into that hard bop direction, which would eventually go into fusion, a few albums from after this. ESP, the title track, is very memorable. It's played with a lot of fire. 81 would be the foundation for a song by Herbie Hancock that I will discuss later. Little One, which is a Herbie Hancock song, would also be on an album that he recorded in 1965 that I will discuss later on. And this is a more fiery version. I mean, it's still pretty mellow, but not as mellow as Herbie's track that I'm going to talk about. RJ, Agitation, very hard bop, very cool tracks. Tony Williams has a wonderful drum solo at the beginning of Agitation. Iris and Mood, they're more tranquil songs, but they're also very strong, very expressive solos by the band throughout the album. My number 8 is Miles Davis, ESP. My number 7, this was my father's vinyl. It's the Rolling Stones, Out of Our Heads. Now, this would be the first of 2 albums they were released in the States in 1965. The other one is December's Children, Everybody's Children. This is where the band was really starting to come into their own on their original songs. Now, there's still some cover tunes on here, like Marvin Gaye's Hitchhike and Sam Cooke's Good Times, and they're very good. This is where we get the number 1 hit, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which has become a timeless song by the Rolling Stones. You always have to play this song live because it's an iconic song for the Stones. The Last Time is a fantastic track. That was probably one of their first big hits in the States as well, but it didn't hit number 1. Then you have the Assistant West Coast Promotion, Man, Inspiring to Fly. They have more of a blues feel. Play with Fire was a lot more elegant, but mixed vocal performance on it's very cutting. It's a very cool track. One More Try is very good. So this is my number 7, the Rolling Stones, Out of Our Heads. Number 6, the first of 2 albums that I will be discussing by this band, and it is the Beatles with the soundtrack to the movie Help. Now, this album, they're still putting in a couple of cover songs, but this is mostly original and a lot of great tracks on here. The second to last track, Yesterday, is one of their most iconic songs. Help was a huge hit. This went to number 1, the title song I'm talking about. Ticket to Ride was a huge hit as well. At this point, the harmonies were still spectacular. No other great tracks on here. The Night Before, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away is very wistful. I Need You is a great original by George Harrison. You're Gonna Lose That Girl's excellent. I've Just Seen a Face is one of their deep cuts. Great deep cuts. And that got played a lot on AOR back in the day. You don't really hear it much now, but it's another excellent track. This is my number 6, The Beatles with Help. Number 5, I don't think this album gets the recognition it deserves because of what came out after. But this is The Who's debut album, and it's The Who Sings My Generation. Now, at this point, they were more of a hard R&B band, a lot of piano, a lot of emphasis on harmonies. The songs really kick here. Out in the Street is a kick-ass opener. La La Lies is awesome. Generation is the most well-known and iconic song off this album. Now, this wasn't a big hit for them in the States, but it's become one of their most enduring songs. It's a song about rebellion. Hope I die before I get old. Song that's aged like a fine wine. The Kids Are All Right was a single. It also didn't chart here in the States, but it's also very memorable. You got a cover of Please, Please, Please by James Brown. Legal Matters, a great song. The Good's Gone is also very strong. Very strong debut, but it gets dwarfed by The Who Sell Out, Tommy, Who's Next, Quadrophenia. It's my number 5, The Who's debut album, The Who Sings My Generation. Number 4, I was talking about this artist earlier, Herbie Hancock, Maiden Voyage. Now, we have Ron Carter and Tony Williams here from the Miles Davis Quintet, and we also have Freddie Hubbard on trumpet and George Coleman on tenor saxophone. The title song, Maiden Voyage, the song 81 will become a foundation for that song. That song I talked about from ESP earlier, and that has become one of Herbie's most enduring songs as well as a jazz standard. This album is more mellow compared to ESP by Miles Davis. Little One, which I talked about earlier, that this is a more elegant version. Dolphin Dance is in the same mode. It's very elegant. The musicians are really playing for the song on here. Now, the Eye of the Hurricane, and especially Survival of the Fittest, they're going in a more creative and more daring direction on these songs. Survival of the Fittest, particularly, you have Tony Williams really going off on here. The Eye of the Hurricane, another strong track. Classic jazz album. My number four, Herbie Hancock, Maiden Voyage. Number three, the MVP of 1965, in my opinion, Bob Dylan, Bringing It All Back Home. Now, this is where he first went electric, at least on the first half of the album. Subterranean Homesick Blues would become a minor hit single, more known for its video, which INXS would later borrow the theme of that video for the song Need You Tonight Intermediate. She Belongs to Me is a wonderful ballad. Maggie's Farm is ragged and cutting and killer. Love Minus Zero is another wonderful ballad. Bob Dylan's 115th Dream is very loose and hard rocking. You have the version of his original Mr. Tambourine Man on here, but it doesn't have the harmonies that you heard on the Byrds version. It's still very good. Gates of Eden, It's All Right, Mom, Only Bleeding are both wonderful. Speaking of Sopranos, It's All Right, Mom, Only Bleeding was also featured in an episode of The Sopranos. And It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, which was the last song that Bob Dylan and his band would perform at the Newport Folk Festival in 65. That is a fantastic closer, one of his most enduring songs. And if you'd like to hear that song in the movies, A Complete Unknown is out now. What a wonderful biopic about Bob Dylan, which ends at the Newport Folk Festival of 1965. Fantastic album. And Bob Dylan made so many wonderful albums in the 1960s. Bring It All Back Home is my number three. Number two, I talked about this band before. It's Rubber Soul by the Beatles. Here, now they're really coming into their own as songwriters. They wrote all the songs on here. The deep cuts on here are wonderful, but as far as the singles or songs that would later be released as singles, Nowhere Man is fantastic. What wonderful harmonies on that. Drive My Car is an excellent track. Norwegian Wood has that Indian feel that's so strong. Michelle is a very popular track. In My Life, I don't believe that was ever released as a single, but it's one of their most enduring songs. Wonderful track by Lennon and McCartney. The song, it's become very timeless. It's been recorded by so many other artists. Other great songs on here. The Word is wonderful. What Goes On, which is Ringo Starr's song on here. That's very good. If I Needed Someone is a wonderful song from George Harrison. Run for Your Life is the scathing and really cutting closer. This is my number two, Rubber Soul by the Beatles. Number one, this, I have owned this on CD since 1989. And my father owned this on vinyl. Rest in peace, Dad. So there's the original vinyl. And yep, Highway 61 Revisited. No way in the world this wouldn't be my number one. Like a Rolling Stone would be Bob Dylan's first huge hit single. It went to number two. This is where he went electric for the whole album, except the last fantastic closer. Tombstone Blues rocks like hell. It's very ragged. It takes a lot to laugh. It takes a train to cry. It's very bluesy. My favorite band, Little Feat, would cover this song and make it even more slow and grinding. From a Buick 6 is very cool. Ballad of a Thin Man. Excellent track. Highway 61 Revisited, the title song with the siren whistle is a very memorable track. Queen Jane Approximately is very memorable. Also, Desolation Row closes the album. It is a 11-minute epic. It's just Bob and his acoustic guitar and harmonica. Wonderful. This has been covered live by many, many artists. But to me, This might be my favorite album by Bob Dylan. I mean, it's close. This and Blonde on Blonde. But my number one for 1965, Bob Dylan, Highway 61, Revisited. It's an honorable for you. Charlie Brown Christmas by the Vince Guaraldi Trio. I mention this because I took piano lessons when I was older, and I actually played Christmas Time is Here in a recital. This is a Christmas album, but it also has the most iconic song from the Peanut series, Linus and Lucy. That's the song a lot of people, they may not remember the title, but if you start playing the piano part, you start humming it, everyone knows what it is. Skating is another wonderful track. The Christmas song is excellent. Again, it's a Christmas album, but the performances on here are very sublime. Excellent album. So, what are your favorite albums from 1965? Do you like the albums that I talked about here? Are there other albums by these artists you like more? Please let me know in the comments. Just to let you know, there will be an upcoming series of one of my favorite artists in the near future. And I'm not really sure who it's going to be, but you know me, I like to give spoilers. So until I see you again, do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.